Today we're going to be covering the Monroe Rapids Knights Challenge. It's a tournament I played in. My name is David, or you can call me the Quadrat. We are going to be covering 5 games where I played against some of the players at the tournament. There's only 5 games in the tournament. The time control is 25 plus 5. Let's get right into it. All right. So the first game was a little bit slow. It was a Sicilian where I offered this line where if e5 gets played, it's a blunder. And white plays e5, and I play queen a5 check. Blunder is because you're going to play queen a5 check, and you're going to win the pawn. We get queen e2. I'm not afraid of trading queens when I'm a material, so we trade queens. Put the pawn in the center. Put another pawn in the center. Play bishop to e6. I will mention bishop to e1. Very strange move. This move has an idea behind it, though, to possibly play knight e2. I actually kind of like it. Very interesting. I play bishop e6, solidifying the center some more. We get to h3, kind of stopping knight g4 potentially. We get bishop g4. I want to double the pawns and continue the game. Maybe win a pawn in the future. They play h3. I double the pawns gladly. Play knight e4. Bishop b2 gets played. I play rook b8. I want to activate my rook, develop my pieces, win the pawn. And after rook to e1, just castle. We get bishop to d2, attacking my knight. My knight really doesn't have any reasonable squares because if you play knight to e5, f3, knight goes away, you lose the pawn. So let's instead, real quick, just take this bishop away, get rid of the bishop here. We have no problems doing anything like that. Now, we probably should be playing f6 here to get rid of problems, f4 being a problem, because if you play f6 and f4, e5, bishop does not have f4. However, I played e4 right away. We get bishop to f4. Not the cleanest way of playing this. We get, after rook b2, rook to e2, which is a mistake, I would say, because this just pins the pawn to the rook, which you really want to be able to move this pawn. Get f5, bishop to e5, rook to a2, and offering a rook trade. Now, I'm off material, so I'm going to check the trade of rooks and then play rook to b8. This, of course, with the threat of forking the bishop and the king. We get rook to e1, we get king f7, king h2, c5. I'm just going to continue, going forward, put my pawns in the center, have a really nice center, king to f2, king g2, bishop to d5, f4, which immediately is a mistake because you really should be keeping your pawns around the king. e5 check, forcing the king to go somewhere, and here move bishop f3 or bishop to e4 is good. I prefer bishop to e4 because I want to get them to move the rook back and forth like this, and then continue with my king. But instead we get c3, and immediately I sacrifice a pawn. Now the whole point of this is I'm going to push this pawn, threaten a promotion, and they play king to e2. I'm just going to win the bishop. That's exactly what happens. The bishop is trapped. I'm going to win the bishop. I win it. They play c4, check, check again, take the pawn after c4, and king to e6, and the rest of the game is just me cleaning up, checking the king to the back rank, checking, check, and then trapping the king in a box to play rook to c1. Now, the first game went pretty smoothly. There wasn't much to say about this game. My opponent just lost a pawn and went pretty quickly, just pushing forward, right? Now, on to the next game. We have a game against this player called Sundaraj. I have the white pieces in the second round. And again, we have a Pirts. This is a more aggressive opening. This is trying to get me out of comfort. Now, I am pretty fond of the opening. I have a lot of friends that play this. We get knight to e4. I play bishop d2. Now, here, actually, this is where the first moment happens. After queen a5, this is a pretty common idea. You want to attack the e-pawn. Now here, immediately, I should be probably playing bishop d2, just defend the pawn and continue development, right? However, I had this funny idea that if I played e5, knight to d4 got played, I would play bishop d3 and potentially sack a piece and go for a lot of activity here. Now, I didn't go for that because I really didn't feel like I needed to be super aggressive. I felt like I could just play a normal game where I give up the bishop pair. Queen c7 gets played. Idea is trying to play c5. I play knight to e4 in order to stop c5 with c3 and just have this big bulky center. After playing knight to e4, they play h6. I'm guessing just to stop knight to g5 in the future. Bishop d3, d5, knight g3. Now I'm preparing to play f5. They play e6. I play f5. b6 gets played, and then pawn takes. Now, if they take with the pawn back, queen check, king goes to the center of the board, and I'm doing pretty well. I'm just going to castle, put my knights to the center, maybe sacrifice a knight and go for an attack. That's not what happened. In the game, what happens is they played in the move knight b8, which is a strange move. This immediately just lets me take the f pawn and have exactly what I want. I play knight to h4. Now here, castling is probably just a great move, attacking and developing a piece. However, I want it to be a little bit more cheeky. I play knight to h4, purely going for this pin. They play a queen to e6, and I play bishop to f5, attacking the bishop through the queen. They attack my queen. Now, I could go for this and play bishop g7, just winning the rook, right? But I decided not to. I instead just play knight to g6, attacking with a fork. And sorry. That was a little spoiler, even though the game is pretty close to ending. We get queen to d8. My opponent setting up for the next game. If they just put the knight back on the center of the board, the game is pretty funny. But anyway, we get after queen d8, I play takes the bishop. They play knight to e7. Clearly, they did not want to trade pieces, because if they trade pieces, they're already down a lot of material. And after I castle, it's pretty over. Instead, they keep more pieces on the board with knight to e7. I check. They play king up. I check again. The king goes to the center of the board. King e7. I play bishop f7, sacrificing the knight with castles. And after the next move gets played, either king g4, king e4, rook to e1. Here, my opponent resigned. If they play this, I checkmate them. If they play this, I checkmate them, because the bishop covers the square and everything is completely covered. And that was the second game. 22 move victory. And now we go on to the third game. This is where everything gets a little bit more spicy, a little bit more interesting, right? Now, I'm going to slow down a bit, because the first two games were not as interesting, but this next game here, we're going to now get into the spicy tactics of playing against stronger players here. I will mention that I was not playing in the open section in this tournament. This was the under 1300 section, because my rating is super low at the moment. We're getting, most of these players are under 1300. And yeah, let's continue. Now we get e4. I can play c5, knight to f3. I'm employing the Sicilian for most of my games. I enjoy the Sicilian. And here we have this move, bishop c4. Now, here there is a theoretical line where after knight e4, knight e4, we get e5, takes, knight back, knight g5. There's a line here where you can play f6 and try to attack. This position looks very strange because white has two pieces activated. However, I love preparations here. It's very, very fun to play for black if played correctly. However, in the game we get bishop to c4. I play e6. Now in the Sicilian, bishop on the c4 is not really reasonable, because you're going to be you're going to be biting on granite, basically. It's these pawns are going to stay there forever. We get to e3. We get a6. They play a3, not wanting to, put the bishop on b3. I play d5. They take. Queen e2 check. I play bishop e7. We get bishop to a2. And here I play the move h6, because I get an opportunity in this situation. I either play the move bishop g4, which offers to try to put a knight on e4, which is honestly the better idea, or I can play h6, trying to restrict this black bishop, or this black squared bishop for the rest of the game. Now I decide to play bishop to h6, because if they do play bishop f5, this looks very menacing. I could potentially really get in there. And it's no longer good to castle short or castle long. If they castle long, I have b5, b4. If they castle short, I'm already attacking the king side, so it's pretty good. So after this, they play h3, stopping bishop g4, stopping that option of happening. I play bishop d6. We get knight to e5, and after knight e5, I play knight to e4, because after they move the knight, they stop looking at this d4 square. After knight d4, they play queen d2. They need to keep an eye on this c pawn, so either they have to play queen d1 or queen to d2. They prefer queen d2. I think queen to d1 was a little bit more active. However, it's unclear. It's probably better, but okay. Queen d2. We get bishop to d6, bishop to knight to f3, and here I play the move takes, doubling the pawns, giving them an open file towards my g pawn here. But I'm not going to castle for the next game. Here, I could castle and just continue playing something like this, right? However, here, I was kind of scared, because there's a lot of these tactics where after king h7, just guarding all my pieces, they can play rook takes g7. And after queen takes, it's unclear if I'm even better here anymore. There's a lot of tactics here where I'm probably close to losing. But anyway, I play b5, not castling. I don't want to allow any options. The best way to actually before we go b5, the best way to encounter this is after rook g8, play the move rook e8. Because after they take this h pawn, you play bishop to g4 check, blocking the bishop with check, and after the king moves, right, you're gonna take the queen. Which, to be fair, very hard to play that. Very unclear. I'd play b5, going for just space on the queen side, because I don't think they're gonna castle long or short. I play queen e7, unpinning my bishop so my bishop can move. They play bishop d2. I go for b4, takes, and after knight to a4, here I could play the move rook to c8, rook to b8, or castles. Now, I already explained why I don't like the castle here, because if I castle, then there's potential sacrificing ideas towards the king. My king feels a lot safer in the center of the board, to be fair, so I play the move rook b8. This is just purely a constricting move. I want to play bishop to d7, and this knight is trapped. And if they play b3, I'm just going to take, and there's going to be this weak pawn on the side of the board that I can maybe put pressure on with my knight on d7 and to c5. They castle. I play queen to c7, already threatening b3 with maybe some e5 ideas, just trying to attack the king. They play king b1. I castle, and then they play the move rook to g1. I play king h7. Again, now I feel like castling because I don't see any threats immediately with sacking the rook on g7. They play a rook to c1, which is a strange move. I play bishop d7, purely attacking this knight. And I'm assuming my opponent missed it because if they played this would be a very hard position to play. Maybe we get b3. Maybe I would sacrifice. I would open up the position towards his king, and the game would end pretty momentarily if I play it correctly. But here my opponent played queen f1, queen f1, and the knight is just hanging. I just take it. They play queen g2, attacking my king. I play g6. I play bishop to f4. Just trade the bishops. Everything should be good. We get b3. I play bishop d7. f3. c3, which just blunders, opening the king up. I take. d4, rook to c1, bishop to e6, and after this, I just take the pawn in front of the king. Check. Put my queen, threatening mate 2 different ways. They offer a rook trade, and I just mate them because this is just checkmate. This game was an interesting one because, we kind of played a game of poker here. Who wants to castle, who doesn't want to castle. As soon as you can see I played here, I kind of only castled after I realized they castled queenside. And then only after I felt like I was pretty comfortable. And then the rest of the game ended pretty quickly, just trading off and, continuing the attacks. Okay, now, the 4th game. Now, I'm going to take this one real slow here. I'm not going to rush. But we are going to mention one thing here. My opponent is not under 1300 here. Because we are playing in the under 1300 section, a lot of players in the state of Washington, at least, are not rated super high. A lot of players play online. This is already kind of a known fact for some players trying to gain ELO nowadays. There's a lot of underrated players that don't have ELO. So this player here, I think they're rated around maybe 1200 in USCF. However, online they're around 1800. So we get e4, e6, d4. My opponent opts for the French. I play knight to c3, playing the main line French, which I have played for a bit because I like to encounter the bishop b4, which is the win havre. They play knight f6, the main line French. I play bishop g5. They play bishop e7. I play e5. And here, trading is pretty common. You play this position, you play f4, c5, knight c3. This is known as the Steinitz French. Very, very solid. Probably a good choice, honestly, for majority players. However, I haven't had so much fun in this line. I prefer to play this move, h4. This is called the Alekhine Shattered Attack, or the Alekhine Gambit. Depends on what you prefer to call it. This idea is just to purely sack a pawn, opening up the h file towards the king. If black tries to castle the king side, which in most French lines, black castles the king towards the king side. But here, it's not so good. We get queen takes g5, knight to h3, queen e7, and queen g4, attacking a pawn on g7. Now, after queen g4, this is a pretty common idea in the French. You're going to put a queen on g4, and they're going to either play king f8 or g6, right? Now, my opponent said they've never seen this idea before. They thought it was kind of strange. King f8 is probably the most common way to defend. Honestly, probably the best way to defend. I would prefer king f8. g6 is a little bit suspicious because after knight g5, this pawn is hanging. If you play h5, king f4, queen f4, and then you're kind of getting a lot of pressure towards your king here. These light squares are not super good when you have a light squared bishop of your own, and this light squared bishop is not a very good defender in the French, famously. So after queen g4, they play rook to g8, which is a move I've never encountered until this game. Bishop d3, h6, bishop h7, and rook to f8. Now I will mention right here, if they play rook to h8, this position will be a lot more different. We would be playing a position where I'm just playing a position where I'm gonna go for this h pawn being very weak comparative to this d pawn being very weak. Like we would get something more similar to maybe knight b5 going for this, knight to a6, c3, and we get a very solid structure. And I have to play this position very wonky, just playing against this h pawn. It would be a long game, but honestly, probably the best choice for black. My opponent, however, plays the move rook to f8, which allows me just one material, meanwhile keeping all the pieces on the board, my queen's on the board especially. I take, they played this move c6, which was interesting, just trying to bunker down. Maybe they don't like any ideas. I actually don't really like this move c6. I prefer knight c6 or c5 right away. But okay, we get c6, queen takes a6, knight to b6, going for the c4 square. I play bishop d3, immediately making a blunder. Now, this blunder is very funny because it looks like you can play queen b4 attacking two pawns. However, there's a very, very hidden idea here. This is what happened, by the way. After queen b4 gets played by my opponent, I play castles, defending two of the pawns. Kind of. Now, it looks like this d pawn is hanging. However, it is very much not hanging. Because if you take this pawn, knight to b5, attacking the queen, and if you take the knight, bishop comes with check, and you win the rook, win the queen with the rook. And another thing, if knight b5 gets played, queen takes, rook to e1, and the queen has nowhere to go to defend this c7 square from this fork. So my opponent does not do that. They move knight d7. This idea being, if I play any other move that doesn't defend this pawn, let's say I play a random move like king b1 and they take this pawn. Now knight b5 is not a good move because after they take, bishop takes does not come with check. And now they can move the queen and I'm just losing everything. So after knight d7, I play the move knight to f4. This move defends the pawn with the same kind of concept. If they take the pawn now, I'm going to play knight takes e6. The idea being I'm forking the king and rook. So if they move the queen, I'm just going to take the rook. And if they take my knight, bishop to g6 check, attacking the queen with my rook. Both sides are this is kind of funny. Both sides have weak light squares towards the king with this move knight f4. Anyway, after knight f4, we get the move knight to c4. I take it because I don't want this queen to checkmate me on b2. I play the move, and here is where I play the move knight to e6 check, sacrificing the knight completely. Now, from this position, you need to look at this. I'm up technically one pawn here. However, it's really hard to break through this king right now. There's not really any clear way to try to punish black here. If I develop my pieces rook d3 or rook h3, it doesn't seem like I can maybe do anything. This pawn is kind of hanging. If I can't really put my knights anywhere that are much better than where they are. If I put my rook on g3 and try to trade, maybe that's a good idea. But black's plans are very simple here. Black wants to play knight b6, bishop d7, castle long. Maybe they can survive. Maybe they want to play b5, a5, put the bishop on b7, castle long. Black just wants to castle. So, from my standpoint, I want to do something to stop black from castling completely. So, I start looking at this move knight takes e6. And after a bit, I calculate that knight takes e6, pawn takes e6, queen check, king to d8, and this move rook h7 has a very, very clear and strange idea. The whole point is that if black takes any time to take this pawn here, I'm gonna play queen to d6 and play e6 and maybe just win the queen here. Also, the idea of rook h7 is I'm gonna play queen d6 anyway, and if they move the knight, this rook would be hanging. My opponent here plays queen c7 check. I play queen d6. Obviously, if they go back to king d8, I just take this bishop and take this rook and take this other rook. Oh, sorry. Take this other rook and I'm winning because I'm up a full rook for the knight, and I have all these passed pawns, and it would be easy to win blindfolded even. After queen b6, not going for this whole idea that the rook is hanging, I play this move e6. Now, the idea being, if they play knight to f6, I'm just going to play queen to c7 check, and play the move. Rook c7. And if they move the rook, I'll just win the knight. And if they take here, this is hanging and completely winning. Probably bishop e6, and you can fork the king and queen, the knight and bishop. Also, I'm not even sure if that's the best move. Knight f6. I think you can even play just takes, and play queen b2, win the knight, and push this pawn, and you're completely winning. However, my opponent does not do that. My opponent plays the move rook f6, pinning my queen. I play the move queen e7, attacking the rook and continuing to attack this knight. If the knight moves, I'm going to take the rook. And if the rook moves, I'm just going to take the knight. And the knight does move. The idea being, if I take this rook and takes queen b2, this is probably still winning. However, I had a better idea. I had the idea of playing knight with queen to c7 check, forcing the king to a6, and then playing this move e7, which I saw from back before queen d6. Before I played the move queen d6, I saw this move e7 potentially getting happening. And I thought this was really nice, because if you take the knight, I'm going to promote. If you try to guard yourself, I'm going to take the knight and promote. So I'm still promoting no matter what. You can never stop me from promoting. I play e7, they play bishop to f4, and with this idea, my opponent actually said after the game that they missed this idea. That I'm just going to take the knight and promote to a queen and attack this b7 square. And after king to a5, I play the quiet and calculated move, which I saw before e7. Sorry guys, I'm messing up there. Anyway, a3. With the unprovoked but very clear threat of just playing b4. If black plays any move here, I just play b4. They have to sacrifice the queen, and this is checkmate. So, right here, they just sacrificed the queen. The best move here actually was to still play b4, and then king b2 and play rook a1. However, I just wanted to convert the game cleanly. I took with the pawn, they took the rook, I took their bishop, they played king b6 in order to not get mated with my queen on b7. I play f3, they move the rook, I play king dd2, cover the e2 square, and also open up the b1 square. They move the rook, I check, and they resign here. However, I'm just going to play out the moves real quick. If queen a6, I'm just going to win the queen, win the king with checkmate. If they play any move that's legal here, they have to play queen a5, lose the king a6, and they're gonna lose to checkmate with these ladder mate. All right, that was the most interesting game, I would say, with knight takes c6 being a very interesting sacrifice, just barreling straight through the position, having more pawns, 3 pawns for a knight, which is always gonna be good, especially if the king is this weak. Yeah. Anyway, now we're gonna continue to the last game, which I would say has kind of a last game syndrome, as one would call it. This is the last game of the tournament. The game during game 4. Oh, by the way, let me switch this to black side. During game 4, I finished that game and I was talking to my opponent, and I thought that was the last game of the tournament, which is kind of funny, because that's how hyped I was to play knight takes c6. However, in this game, we will be having the black pieces against an opponent who just won 3 games in a row after drawing the first round, called Joshua. And he plays e4, I play c5. Again, I like to employ the Sicilian defense. It's very aggressive, very tactical. I want to keep some ideas on the board, make it real sharp so I can get these players out of theory or any concepts that they know. We get the Rosalimo, I play g6. I have played e6, d6, g6, even queen b6 here before, even queen c7. There's a lot of ideas there. g6 is the most common line, takes, and here I play a move that I do not play very often. However, in this game, this was more of a strange miscalculation, misremembrance of theory. As far as I remember, my theory goes queen b6, bishop e3, and this move bishop h6. The idea being, I'm just going to take this bishop. If they take here, I'm going to take here. And we're going to get a situation where if they move the bishop, I'm just going to win a pawn. And the game will be very straightforward for me, being up material. However, here I play the move bishop g7. And after bishop e3, I play the disastrous mistake, queen b6. Again, messing up some theory. But I played this move after a 3-minute thought, missing the idea entirely for why this is completely losing. It's kind of a ridiculous mistake, but it's pretty clear why I missed it. Here, the move that wins is knight e6, attacking the bishop and keeping an eye on c7. Here, I thought that if I took on b5 and they took here king f8, I thought I was winning because I just took this bishop for completely free and I'm going to win this knight because it's completely trapped. However, if you missed it a second ago, knight to c7 just wins the queen. Luckily, my opponent did not miss that. I probably would not have taken this bishop if knight to c7 was spotted by me, which if they played knight e6, I would have definitely seen it. I would have just played queen e5 check, maybe knight to c3, or sorry, bishop to d2, and then queen b6, and then takes, and we'd have to play this some sort of position where I'm down a knight, but not, I'm down a piece, but not really, and I'd have to try to survive somehow. However, in the game, what happened is they took on c6. I took with the b pawn to activate the bishop on this diagonal. And after knight to f5, I play queen takes b2, guarding the bishop from afar. They take, I take with the queen. We get bishop to e4, d4. And now here I make a positional error. I only realized this after 3 more moves. Here, the best move without a doubt is probably f6 or knight f6. I need to put a pawn on f6 or a knight on f6. If knight to f6, e5, knight d5. After e6, I was kind of afraid of this, trying to play f6 and then takes and playing c4. This position looks very scary for me, but it's completely fine. I should do this. Or at least play f6 right away. I was kind of not so fond of playing this move f6 because I did not like e5, just knocking on the door of my position. It's not so fun to look at. However, as the game goes on, I understand why this move I played in the game, which is e5, not so good. Here, the best move would be bishop c4, just trapping all of my pieces off the side of the board, and queen d6 being a complete and great threat. I can't play d6, I can't do anything here. I have to probably play queen to f6, which is not a move that anybody wants to play. And then after light castles and plays f4, I'm probably losing, but I'd have to find some way to finesse this position to continue the game. Because if I play bishop h6, stopping castle, and queen d6, it's probably winning completely. I can't play knight e7, I can't play knight f6. Queen f8 is always threatened. I'd have to play knight to h6. And this queen being in here is not so good, like at all. Anyway, after e5, they play the move bishop to b2. I play bishop a3, stopping castles. They play queen d6. I play f6, guarding my pawn that they were attacking. They play f4. I play takes. They play e5, and here actually I thought that after they took with the queen, I was doing very badly. I did not like this position at all. I was only kind of fond of maybe playing here. Maybe I could play king f7 and try to hold my position after e5, but e5 kind of ruins it for me. I have to play rook e8 here to stop it, because if I play the move f5, check, loses the queen. So, I mean, if this happened, king f7, and I'd have to defend here for a little bit, and I'd maybe find a way to get out of it. However, after I played e takes f4, they play the move e5, which is a big blunder, immediately giving away the advantage back to me. I play the move queen e7. They play knight to e2. The idea, of course, I want to trade queens, put my king on e7. If they take, I play with my knight takes, put my rooks in the center of the board, and I'm up 2 pawns. However, after queen to e7, they play the move knight to d2. I play queen takes, they take with the pawn. I play king f7. Again, I want to play my rook on e8, check, put my knight on h6, and continue the game. They castle long. I play knight to h6. I want to get this rook out of the way of this pawn so I can potentially push this f pawn or get some pressure off this pawn, because knight e4 is coming. and it's not going to look super good. Rook to e1 gets played. I play rook to e8. They play knight to e4. I play the move knight g8. Now, this was kind of the idea of playing knight to h6 with rook e8. It's because after knight to e4, not trading rooks, by the way. If they trade rooks, this game is a very easy win for me because I'm the only one with full control of this file. This f-pawn is sufficiently defended by my king. This knight is not equipped to go to e4 ever. And the game will continue with me just winning, being up 2 pawns. However, after rook to e8, they play knight to e4. I play knight to g8, defending my pawn some more because the knight is attacking the pawn. They play knight to c5, attacking this d pawn. And here's where you kind of get some funny ideas pop up once you get to this position. Now, I did not see this idea immediately before looking at the lines. However, I did see that after this position, bishop c8 was not so good after I got to the position here. I thought that this would be good beforehand, before seeing knight to c5. However, once I got here, it wasn't so good. The reason this is not good is because after rook trade, check here, king f7, there are ideas where white just keeps this knight here, controlling this bishop completely, and plays a rook on e7, brings the king, and black has no moves. Black cannot move here forever. It's a death trap entirely. And also, you have this move knight takes d7 potentially coming in, where maybe some forking ideas against this bishop, which is not good. Anyway, right here, I play this move bishop c4. Maybe I want to put my bishop on e6. I'm just giving away this pawn because I know I can't really defend it. After takes, I trade rooks. If you want to win a game of chess, you trade rooks, is usually the saying. I play a rook to d8, and they play this move knight to f6, which I saw after playing bishop c4. I saw that after we get to this position, knight to f6 will get played. The idea being, if I take it with the knight, which I did, they would play a rook check. My king would have to go down, and they just take it with the bishop in the corner over here. And after this, I thought that I was, if I was better, I was okay. I was equal. Because here, I'm just going to take the pawn, and after the bishop moves to h5, this pawn is hanging, this pawn is hanging. It's an opposite colored bishop. On top of that, I'm either just completely equal or slightly better due to the fact I'm up a pawn. I thought, okay, I can do this. If anything, I have a position I can play for, maybe. My opponent, however, right here does not play the move bishop to a4. I was actually planning on playing h6 here, giving the pawn away, and playing b5, trying to restrict this bishop, maybe push my majority on the side of the board and try to do something there. However, my opponent here plays the move rook to e4, which is an utter mistake. Very bad blunder, because after I get rid of the bishops being on opposite colored, by the way. You don't want to trade opposite colored bishops when you have opposite colored bishops, because if you're down on material, it's better to just keep those and try to trade. Because as we all know, opposite colored bishops, even if you're up 2 pawns, you can draw them. After they take on c4, I play the move g5, guard the pawn, want to push the rest of my pawns if b3 happens. They play rook to c5. Now, pushing would be a mistake because they can play rook to g5, and if I try to guard it, they would just check and win the pawn. So we're not going to do that. We're going to instead defend the pawn with h6. They play a4. Here, taking the pawn looks kind of risky because we just get forked. So I did not do that. I instead play the move g4. We get king d2, and here I employ an idea where I want to guard all of my pawns, because here if I play king e2, king e7, we get rook to h4, and I cannot guard the a pawn. And if I try to push this pawn, the king will always guard it. So I play the move king g7 instead. I want to push my king up the board, maybe trade rooks, and that would be fine. If I put my king on a5, on h5, I will win this pawn no matter what. If they play rook to a5, the idea is just to play rook a7 and have no problems guarding this position completely, because I can play rook c7, and this looks kind of miserable, but it's not. If they try to attack it and do something like this, I can just push the pawn, and I'm completely guarding everything. Instead, after king g2, they play king to e2. I play check. I play king to g6. Idea being, I'm just going to play king to f7 and trade, or play rook f6 eventually and trade. Don't know which one. I thought this was completely winning, which it is. They played h5 check. Oh. They play h5 check, which is a mistake. Makes another weakness. I play king f6. They play rook to a5. Again, going for this pawn, but now I'm not going to guard the pawn because this pawn is weak and it's just going to glue me towards it. Well, I'll be honest, this is still completely winning because I'm just going to move my king towards h5. Instead, I prefer the more active solution, which is just play rook a5, trade the rooks for both rooks, and after they attack the rook, rook to c5, and this is completely winning. And here my opponent resigned. And this is how I won the Monroe Rapids Knight Challenge for the under 1300 section. Just winning all my games kind of concretely. Not in this last game. This last game I kind of made a mistake right away. I played queen b6, which is just an error from some of my opening preparations. However, here my opponent resigned because I'm up 3 pawns. I'm up a full pawn. I have 3 pawns against 1. This c pawn is undefendable, and after I move my king up and push these pawns, it's no problem. And I had a lot of time on the clock. My opponent has a lot of time on the clock. This game kind of went pretty quickly, and yeah, there's not much to do here. This pawn is gonna get lost, and there's nothing after this king here. The game ends pretty much immediately. I'm gonna keep an eye on this pawn. I'm gonna push my own pawns, and it's pretty smooth sailing from there. Yeah, and that was my Monroe Knights Challenge tournament. I don't know what else to say. I ended the tournament with 5 out of 5. I'm gonna be looking forward to more tournaments in the future. The next video you guys probably will see from me is the daily chess tournament that's going on chess.com. I'm participating in that. It will be very, very interesting. I won my first round. We will be covering that in the next video shortly. Yeah, I'll see you guys later, all right? We'll be seeing you. See you guys in the next tournament. Goodbye.